Okay, I'm going to say something that might feel a little uncomfortable, but maybe also really freeing. A lot of teachers right now feel like they're managing behavior more than they're actually teaching. And if that's you, I want you to know something. That doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. In fact, I know you're a good teacher. But if you're like so many teachers that I know who are frustrated with student behaviors, like playing whack-a-mole with your classes, it probably doesn't feel like it right now. So let's chat about why you might be feeling this way and, of course, what you can do about it. Hey friends, welcome to Enjoy Teaching Again, the podcast for teachers who love the work but need a little spark to bring the joy back. I'm your host, Elizabeth Peterson, classroom teacher, arts integration specialist, and passionate educator of over 25 years. If you're overwhelmed by behaviors, disengaged students, and long, exhausting days, you are not alone. But together, we can turn things around and you can teach with confidence and purpose again. So locate that cold coffee of yours, find your favorite pen, I know you have one, and let's dive in. It's time to get inspired and enjoy teaching again. You know, there was a season in my teaching career when I was exhausted, and I mean bone tired. I was repeating myself all day long, managing and correcting behaviors instead of teaching, and just trying to squeeze creativity into a curriculum that not only felt scripted and stiff, but some of it actually was scripted. And I kept thinking, is this just how teaching is nowadays? At that point, I had just about, 20 years in the classroom, and I knew that I did not want to become the teacher who just went into work and survived until June. So I had to make a decision, and I decided to stop waiting for things to just magically change. And I decided to put into practice what I had been teaching so many other teachers in workshops and courses and retreats for so many years, and figure out a way to bring some of that creativity and that joy that we would have in those workshops, bring that back to my teaching, because I knew that I was going to be the only one who would be able to do that for myself. And that is when I decided to build a reset. And that reset changed everything. Slowly, I started to figure out what were the most important parts that needed to be reset inside my classroom. And every time I started a new reset in my room, my kids were becoming calmer. I was feeling confident again, and teaching felt creative again. I was actually smiling while I was teaching more and more. And that's why I've now poured everything that I've learned and everything that I put together for myself into the classroom reset. Now, if you're wondering whether it's possible to feel excited, yes, I said excited about teaching again, I am telling you it is. I want you to come and check out the Classroom Reset at theinspiredclassroom.com/reset, RESET, and see if this is your moment to reset your classroom too. All right, let me paint the picture for you, okay? You're constantly redirecting your class. Teaching a lesson takes what seems to be double the time that you thought it would take. Maybe you find yourself repeating yourself all day. And all of this leaves you feeling drained. And it's no wonder why I call this the daily teacher drain, because it's happening on a daily basis. Let's face it, you're doing everything you know how to do, and it's still not working the way that you want it to. So the question then becomes, why does your classroom feel like this? Why does it feel like it's out of control when you're doing everything right? Well, be assured this is not just affecting you. It is affecting so many teachers, and it's teachers across the country and even around the world. I mean, really, I talk with so many teachers who are feeling the same way, and it's just so tough, especially when you realize that it's not just this class that you have this year, and it's not just this year. It's kind of the way things are right now. And if you're like so many teachers today, you're experiencing things like the increased behaviors, the constant interruptions, less student stamina, and more big emotions, and just in general, more emotional needs. Now, it's easy for teachers to think that this problem is, this group of kids or, kids today, they just don't care anymore. And believe me, when I say I totally get that, because the kids of today, they actually are different, right? They've changed. They are different than what you may have taught just a few years ago. Or maybe you find yourself thinking, if I just found a better behavior strategy, or maybe I just need to be stricter. And so many teachers just find themselves thinking, okay, well, only if I had more support. And that's something that I just talked about last week on the podcast. Does any of this sound familiar? Well, while all those things may actually be true, they're not actually the root of the problem. They're the symptoms of a much deeper issue. And that's what I want you to start thinking about. What is at the root of all of this? And how can you use your influence to reset some of these things? See, none of these things are unfixable. Yes, you're dealing with increased behaviors. And yes, students don't have the stamina the way that they used to. And yes, there are big emotions, and it's very possible that you are not getting all the support you need. But you know what is also true? You're a good teacher, and you care. You care enough to want to figure these things out. And not just for your students, but for yourself as well. One thing that I often see that is lacking in many classrooms falls under the category of classroom culture. And culture has to do with how your classroom environment feels, how your students feel when they are in there, and that level of belonging that exists in your room, and the sense of care and calm that also occurs inside. And when your culture isn't stable, behaviors tend to fill in the gaps. Maybe you've noticed things like expectations aren't sticking, or that your students aren't taking your expectations of them seriously. Maybe you've noticed that student engagement just isn't consistent, or maybe that connections aren't really happening between you and your students or among the peers in your room. So that's why those behaviors keep popping up. And what that does is it keeps you reacting all day. It's quite a trap, really, because when you react to situation after situation, well, you find yourself doing some things that maybe drive you crazy, like reteaching expectations often, maybe giving so many reminders to kids. Maybe you try new strategies that may or may not even stick. Or maybe you go in waves of tightening control only to have it fall apart just a couple days later. You feel like you're trying everything, and you feel frustrated and kind of like you want to give up. But see, none of those things, none of the reactionary tactics fix the root of these issues. Instead, they just make you work harder. And in the end, the classroom just doesn't feel any better. And that can be so frustrating. So instead of asking something like, what else should I try? Or what other classroom management strategy can I find? Or what other behavior management system can I try? I want you to ask something else instead. I want you to ask, what is my classroom built on right now? Because here's the thing. After 27 years in the classroom myself, and working with teachers for over 20 years now, I've realized something really important. A strong classroom isn't built on a bunch of strategies. It's built on a foundation. And I like to think of it like a tripod, because your classroom isn't held up just by one thing. It's actually held up by three. And even if one of those things is weak, the whole thing can start to wobble. And eventually it tips. And that's when your classroom can start to feel out of control, even when you're doing everything right. So this tripod, it's built on these three things: connection, regulation, and engagement. Connection is about how your students feel in the room. Do they feel seen? Do they feel known? Do they feel like they belong? Regulation is about, can your students manage themselves? Can they manage their energy, their emotions? And then engagement, that's when you're actually involved in the learning, right? So are your students involved in their learning or just passively sitting there, not even looking at their paper, not even paying attention? And what I love about these 3 feet in this tripod is that this is the exact 3 things that are heavily embedded inside the reset framework: connection, regulation, engagement. And when even one of those things is off, behavior starts to fill in the gaps. So here's what I want to help you with today. Instead of trying to fix everything all at once, let's just take a couple minutes to look for the signs, because your classroom will actually tell you when one of those legs of the tripod is weak. So here are 3 really common signs that I see in classrooms that indicate that your classroom foundation might be, wobbling a little bit. All right. So sign number 1 is you feel like you're saying the same thing over and over again all day long. You're repeating yourself, saying things like, raise your hand. Don't forget to raise your hand. Look at the speaker. It's time to get started. Please stop moving around the room. Stay in your seats. Or let's focus on what we're doing right now. And it's not that your students didn't hear you. It's that something isn't sticking with them. And this is usually a sign that your expectations aren't fully embedded into your classroom's culture yet. So here's something small that you might want to give a try to. Instead of constantly repeating yourself in a reactionary way, try being more proactive and address some of these behaviors before they become an issue. Even taking 30 to 90 seconds before class starts or before an activity and just set the stage for what you expect from your students. It's like giving them a heads up about what's about to come. The thing is that your expectations are clear in your mind, but believe it or not, they might not be clear to your students. I know, it seems kind of ridiculous, right? So, but it's true. And unfortunately, we have to think about what kind of students we have in front of us right now. So what you can do is pick 2 to 3 things that you really want to emphasize during that part of your day and share your expectations with them. So maybe it's that you need them to stay in their seats and raise their hands when they want to answer. Really that simple, right? Maybe it's that they can talk with partners, but their voices need to be low in like a 1-foot voice. Maybe your expectation is that as they walk from station to station, you expect them to walk slowly with their group, holding their clipboard and a sharpened pencil. Whatever it is, it almost always makes an improvement when students understand what's expected of them ahead of time. Sign number 2 is that you feel like you're constantly putting out fires, like all day long. Right? One student interrupts, another student's off task. Someone is out of their seat. Something is just always happening. It's like that whack-a-mole effect. And you never quite get ahead of it. And you feel like you're managing behavior more than you're actually teaching. There's a statistic that I want to pull. I think I have it right here. Yeah. All right. This is from, let me just check here. This is from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. And they did a study, and one of the stats that they uncovered as they were doing their research is that, let me quote this, teachers estimate spending an average of 2.4 hours per week or 14 and a half school days per year managing disruptive behaviors. I mean, that is insane when you really think about that. If you average almost 2.5 hours a week, that's 14 and a half days that is spent on managing disruptive behaviors. So we got to fix this. We got to fix this not just for your kids, but for you. And what I feel like this is, when you feel like you're constantly putting out fires like this, it's really a regulation issue. Not just for your students, but really for the whole room. So instead of just pushing through by correcting something and then moving on and then correcting something else and then trying to move on, try slowing even one part of your day or one part of your class time down on purpose. Like giving your students time to transition into your room with a soft start or a quick question on the board that they have to reflect on and answer. Maybe you can start your lesson with some breath work or stretching to calm the nervous system before you get into your actual lesson. Or maybe even have a quick meeting at the front of the room. It's like a regrouping moment that can happen anytime that things just need an adjustment. Even if it feels like you're losing time by doing these things, what you're actually doing is building in some more stability in your classroom, helping your students to understand your expectations, and hopefully making that nervous system a little bit more stabilized so that you can continue to teach. This is something I notice in my own classroom. When I actually take 3 to 5 minutes at the beginning of a class to stretch and breathe and prepare ourselves for the next amount of time, the kids are so much better behaved and ready than when I don't. And if I ever feel like things are getting a little dysregulated, I actually call my students over to the rug for a standing meeting where we regroup, I re-explain my expectations, and then get them back to where they need to be. It's just time well spent. All right, and the third sign that your classroom foundation might be a little wobbly is if engagement drops off quickly. You know, students are with you, but then you lose them, right? They're listening at first, and then a side conversation starts, and then there's off-task behavior, and then you're just in this constant thing of redirecting over and over again. And it happens faster than you expected. You know, this is often an engagement gap, not because your lesson isn't good, but because students aren't actively in it. They're not quite invested in what you're doing with them. So a couple things you might try is to build in one quick moment where students have to actually do something, right? Like making them active. So things like a turn and talk, or I like to say, talk to your elbow buddies about whatever. Maybe having them do a quick response, either on paper or on a Post-it note or on a whiteboard, partner share. Just even those small little things just to keep them engaged, not just with their ears, but with a little bit more. Even more powerful, and what I teach inside my course, The Classroom Reset, are micro engagement strategies that involve creativity and play and the arts for all age levels and all content areas. Because when students are actively involved with their content, their learning is so much deeper, but also their behavior improves, like a lot, because they are invested in what they're doing. And just a quick tip, I want you to consider ahead of time what engagement strategies you want to use, because these creative micro engagement strategies aren't things that you decide to do just because your students are engaged, but what they do is they become strategies that you build and use on purpose, figuring out the ones that your particular students really gravitate to the most, and then you can use them and reuse them over and over again throughout the entire school year. So if you're noticing any of these signs in your classroom, repeating yourself, feeling like you're constantly putting out little fires, or you're losing engagement, it's not because you're doing something wrong. I know you're a good teacher, even if it doesn't feel like it right now sometimes. You see, this isn't about who you are as a teacher. I know you care. I know you want to do well. I know you want to actually enjoy the work that you're doing with students. And I also know how frustrating it feels when things aren't going the way that you want them to. This is about being equipped with the right kind of support for the students you have right now. because your students need this tripod of support in your classroom with connection, with regulation, and engagement at the center, at the core of what is truly building up the culture in your room. And if one of those legs is weak, things can start to feel wobbly. But the good news is that you don't have to fix everything at once. You just have to start noticing where the wobble is and then begin there. And if these are the types of things that you're thinking, yeah, I think I need to learn a little bit more about this, I want to invite you to go check out the Classroom Reset, my online course that helps you to build these foundational skills inside your classroom so that you're improving behaviors and enjoying your teaching again. Go check it out at theinspiredclassroom.com/reset. I hope this episode inspired you, encouraged you, or gave you a fresh idea to try. And if so, I would love for you to take a screenshot and text it to one of your teaching buddies. I'm so grateful that you landed here with me today, and it would mean the world to me if you would leave me a review over on Apple Podcast. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll catch you on the next episode. This is Elizabeth Peterson reminding you to get inspired so you can be inspiring to your students and enjoy teaching again.